Everybody. Welcome. Wonderful. We are so excited to have you all here. So, welcome back. We are using a new streaming service to do our
Yay!
Facebook Lives. Yay! So exciting. So, hopefully, this is coming through. So, feel free to put some comments in the chat. We'll be able to see them. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what year your students are. That's always super helpful for us, just to give us a little bit of context. So, when we're sharing information this evening, we can make sure that we're giving you information that's most relevant to you and your students kind of wherever you are in the process. It's also helpful for me to know if you can see me, if you can hear me. Sometimes we do have technical glitches and I don't always know what it looks like on the other side. So any feedback is always super helpful. But I hope you are all doing great this Sunday. We are going to be talking about campus visits. Awesome. Patrick from Maine. Hello, Patrick. Welcome. Great. Yay. So we're going to be talking about campus visits, spring and summer campus visits. And I'm super excited to have my colleague Jordan with me tonight for our chat. So we've got lots of great information. Hey, Stuart. Awesome. A 10th grader. Okay, great. Sophomore year, a good time to start thinking about all of this. Awesome. Great. All right. Well, so as we are going through, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat so we can see them. And we'll definitely have time at the end as well for questions. So feel free to put them there. Ooh, another 10th grader. Awesome. Okay, great. Wonderful. All right. So tonight we are going to be talking about campus visits and making the most of those spring and summer visits. If you are new here, I am Gina from Advantage College Planning. Tonight I'm joined by my colleague Jordan. Super
Hello.
excited to have her here. So Jordan has been going on a lot of campus visits lately. I feel like in the last year, I don't even know how many visits you've gone on. I don't know if you're keeping track.
I have
It's
a
just
big long list somewhere, but I can't
yeah, it
totally
seems
remember the
like
number.
it's like every month she's got somewhere that she's going, or she'll even, do like a trip. She's coordinated with like 3 or 4 schools in one visit. So she's gotten a lot of really great experience being on the visitor side of campus visits and kind of has the pulse on what's going on visits lately. And Jordan and I also used to work together in college admissions before joining the Advantage College Planning team. So we've also seen what the campus tour looks like from the admission side and know a little bit about what admissions, is really wanting you to get out of that visit while you're there. So I'm really excited to have Jordan here tonight to talk about different ideas and tips that you can use to help make the most of your visits this spring and this summer. So the first thing I thought would be helpful to talk about would be different types of visits. So sometimes when you go to register, there might be a lot of different options that you can choose, and it can be hard to tell what should I sign up for? Is one better than the other? So Jordan, can you give a little bit of an overview about the options that people might be seeing for registering for their visits?
Yeah, definitely. I know most of the time when I go to register for a campus visit, there is some kind of calendar. You click on the date that you're interested in, and then typically there will be a list of different events going on campus on that date. So you have to pay kind of extra close attention to what you're selecting and signing yourself up for. So, some of those visits are going to be a springtime campus visit, meaning that you're there while school is in session, students are on campus for the most part. You'll want to check if you're visiting schools in the next couple of weeks because college spring breaks are coming up soon. Typically, those happen before our high school spring breaks. Um, but usually, those types of campus visits include an information session with someone from the Office of Admissions and then a tour of campus with a current student, so led by a student tour guide. And usually you're in small groups. Sometimes you get randomly assigned, sometimes you get to pick your tour guide, but typically that's what that kind of visit entails. Also, in the springtime, you'll see a lot of open house events, particularly for high school juniors. I know we have at least one junior on the call, which is awesome. Um, So with open houses, you typically get to experience all different kinds of life on campus. So there's usually some kind of admissions presentation, a financial aid presentation. You get to learn about different student groups on campus, maybe even have like kind of an academic fair with different majors present, things like that. You'll tour residence hall, you can eat in the dining hall, so you get a really nice feel for what being on that campus is like when it's full and busy. And you get to meet other students who are interested in this school, which I think is a really cool benefit of that kind of visit. So those are happening this spring, your individual campus visits, and then some of those open house visits. And then also coming up are options for summer visits. So typically those are a little quieter. There won't really be many students on campus, just those folks hanging around for summer school. Um, but it can be a really nice time to perhaps get a little bit more personalized of a tour with fewer people around, or maybe meet up with people in different offices on campus that you're interested in connecting with. So, all good options for spring and summer visits.
Yeah. And so I love that you brought up that, the energy might be a little bit different depending on the event that you attend. So if you visit campus during the week, but it's during spring break or it's during the summer when there's not really a lot of current students on the campus, it's going to be a little bit more quiet than if you went on a Tuesday in the middle of the semester. So
Absolutely.
it's important to take that into consideration. Awesome. But yeah, those summer visits, I think, too, can be really great. I know we have some sophomores or families of sophomores joining us. And so I think that summer visits can also be really great sometimes for those younger students because it's just sort of like low stakes. There's, less of a chance that you're going to be put on the spot and have to have a one on one conversation if you're not ready to do that yet. But but like you still get a feel for the campus. So I feel like that can be helpful. Great. Awesome. So when students are going on the websites, I know I've been talking with a lot of my students about registering for visits, and sometimes the thought is, well, we're going to be in this one area over spring break. We'll just kind of drive through campus. And that's not a bad thing. But if it's a school that a student's really interested in, we talk to them about making it an official visit and actually registering through the college's website. Can you talk a little bit about why you would want to do that versus I'll just walk through campus on my own?
Yeah, there are a lot of good reasons to make your visit official.
Mhm.
Um, but the first is there will be a record of you as a student visiting that college if you make it an official visit and sign up with your personal email address. So definitely recommend doing that. It's a way to show demonstrated interest in this college, so letting them know that you're interested and that you've taken the time and energy to explore that campus a little bit more. So that's a benefit of making it official. And also, while driving around the campus can help you get a feel for what things look like, how it's spaced out, maybe even number of people on campus or folks you might see walking around. But doing an official tour, you'll really get the whole inside scoop from the people who are there. You'll hear from current students, you can ask questions, it's much more interactive. Um, and you'll still get to see everything that you would have seen just driving around campus yourself. If you aren't able to register for an official campus visit for whatever reason, if it's full or if there's nothing offered while you're in town, you can always reach out to your admission counselor at the school and see if they have any recommendations for things to see on campus for a self guided tour. Plus, that's a way to show demonstrated interest in the school. And you can follow up your kind of self guided tour with an email to your admissions counselor, letting them know you loved what you saw and maybe asking some follow up questions that you have after seeing things in person for yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice because I know, again, spring break time is really busy for visits. And so sometimes there
Mhm.
might be a school that last minute you wanted to add to your list that you just can't get on. So that reaching out to the counselor is really great. And sometimes too, I mean, depending on the school, especially at smaller schools, if they aren't able to fit you in for the tour, it's possible that the admissions rep might even say, we don't have time to, we can't fit you in for the whole tour, but I would love to at least like say hello while you're on campus, and it does give you a chance to make that personal connection, which is really great.
Definitely.
And so then that makes me think then about like, okay, so planning ahead, like that idea of, okay, I've got this visit scheduled, right? And so now how can I plan ahead to make the most of it, right? So if you think about it, if you planned a trip somewhere, if you made a reservation to go to some destination, you're going to plan ahead like, okay, how can I get the most out of it? What else can I do while I'm in the area? And your campus visits, really, you should think about them in the same way. If you're just showing up, parking in the parking spot, doing the specific loop around the admissions tells you to do for an hour and a half and leaving, you're really leaving a lot on the table that you're missing out on, I think. And so this is something I know, Jordan, you've really mastered is like, here's my questions. Here's what I'm going to get out of this tour while I'm there. Here are the things I want to know before I get there. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you plan ahead when you're going to do all of these campus tours and give some suggestions for that.
Right. So I think there is some planning that goes in, let's say, I don't know, a couple of weeks in advance. If you're thinking about things you want to learn about the college, if there is an office on campus that you can speak to, definitely reach out and see if they have time to chat with you on campus. So if there is a particular major you're interested in, or maybe getting accommodations is going to be a really important part of your college experience and you'd like to speak with disability services, you know, either reach out to your admissions counselor at that school and see if they can connect you, or reach out to those offices directly yourself and say, hey, I'm going to be on campus this date, this time. Is there any way that we could come by the office and chat with you about some questions? And oftentimes, folks are going to be really accommodating to speak with prospective students who are interested in their institution. Again, particularly smaller colleges who have a little bit more flexibility there to do things like that. So that's something you can do in advance. Also, a lot of colleges will have either on their admissions page or near the kind of about this college section of the web page, they will have information about the community that surrounds the campus. So that could have potential recommendations for hotel accommodations, sometimes even discount codes for hotels if you need to travel to visit a school. They might also give restaurant recommendations. I know when Gina and I worked in admissions, we had a whole sheet that we would give folks when they came to visit campus with our different restaurant recommendations and recommendations for things to do around town. So some of that can be found on a college's website as well. And then also just kind of logistics of getting situated on the campus once you get there. The college that I went to, parking was tough. Anytime you needed to go anywhere on campus, it was tough. And so I always take that perspective when I'm visiting a campus. How far away is where I'm parking from the admissions office? How long of a walk do I have? I always build in an extra bubble of time so that I'm not showing up stressed out for that admissions presentation because I've had to sprint across a campus after accidentally paying too much in a parking deck. So kind of reading through all of those directions that a college sends you is definitely time well spent. And as you're thinking about kind of questions you might want to ask on a campus visit, special things to pay attention to, oftentimes I like to use ChatGPT to come up with questions for campus visits
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm, feeling a little bit of writer's block. It can be a really nice way to kind of get the gears going in terms of thinking about questions you might want to ask on a particular topic or area of interest in a college that you're visiting.
When you're planning out visits, because I know you've done some where you're up in an area and you're like, okay, we're going to see like these schools while I'm here.
Mhm.
How many schools would you say is like the maximum that you would recommend doing in one day if you're really like only going to be in an area for a short time and you want to make the most of it?
Right. I would say no more than 2 in one day. You really wanna give your kind of brain time to breathe between colleges because otherwise everything is gonna start to jumble together, and you don't have as much time to, like, sit down and have a cup of coffee on campus and kind of see what's going on or do some of those little things on a campus, around a campus, that can make that campus visit so much more, I don't know, valuable.
Yeah. It's also, depending, I think, on when they're booked. Like then if they're too close and the first one is going a little longer than you expected, then you're mentally checked out because you're like, okay, so we've got to go, or you're rushing and then you're late to the next one. So it's just
Right.
like, yeah, got to plan for that.
Yeah,
So
don't
you
need that
started to
added
talk
stress.
about this a little bit, like the area around, like some colleges will give suggestions of places to check out, if you're going to be in the area for a little bit. And I think this is something that a lot of times families don't think of unless we like prompt them to do this. But I think this is super important, is exploring the area beyond the tour. So like I was saying, admissions has their route, right? Like there is a designated route that admissions very specifically maps out so that they're highlighting certain buildings, certain areas of campus that they really want to make sure that you see. And maybe they're also intentionally having you avoid certain areas of campus they don't want you to see, right? So you
Hmm.
have to keep that in mind. So what kind of suggestions do you have, or what's your perspective on exploring beyond the tour?
Yeah, I think kind of depending on what the setup of the campus is, sometimes that could be just continuing to walk around after the tour. It could be, asking your tour guide where their favorite place to hang out on campus is and kind of making your own path to get there. Or it could be driving around, just kind of getting an idea of how far away, like the closest grocery store is, or the closest Target, or any kind of place that you would need to visit regularly in your new home. Get a feel for where it is and how far away that is. I think all of that is valuable as you're kind of mapping out the surrounding area of a college campus.
We also, I know when like we've done tours together, we'll go find that
Mhm.
coffee shop and we'll just kind of look and see like what's the vibe. But one of the things I know you and I both also always look at is literally what's the vibe? Like, are people being
Right.
friendly? Right? Like we're standing here with a map and trying to kind of figure out where to go. We very clearly, aren't at home on this campus. And is this
Mhm.
a place where people are saying hi, they're helpful, they're engaging with us? Is this a place where people are literally just acting like we don't exist? I think things like that are important to pick up too. Like, what's the energy of the place
Yeah.
as you're on
I
the campus?
love when I'm on a college tour and students will yell like, "Come here, you should go here." I love that.
Yeah. Or like or I love it too if like our tour guide knows everybody.
Yes.
Like I've been on tours like
Mhm.
that where it's like every 5 minutes someone's like, "Hey, so and so, oh, happy birthday!" And there's like all these little things happening like that. Again, like big and small campuses, I've seen that at, and it
Mhm.
just like gives you a good idea of okay, like people are kind of friendly, or yeah, like there's
Yeah,
a way to be known if you want to be known.
it's a
Um,
community.
yeah, and I know we both talked about too, like it's okay to take a newspaper
Yes.
or like be a little nosy and check out the bulletin boards. Like what are some of the things that
Mhm.
you always look at when you're on the campus? What are some things you make a note to look at?
Yeah, I take pictures of bulletin boards, so I can kinda go back and really look at them, but definitely, usually on a tour, you'll go through a library or a student union or some kind of big gathering place on campus where there will be bulletin boards full of stuff. So I like to take pictures and go back and look because you'll see, like, job listings, student events, different clubs on campus, like, it gives you a very kind of cool snapshot of what people are doing in that space on that campus. That might kind of match up with what you learned about on your tour, or it might paint a different picture. And either way, I think that's valuable. And along that same line, getting a student newspaper, oftentimes you'll see them as you're kind of making your way around campus, grabbing one of those and looking at it later because oftentimes when you're going on a tour, the information you're getting is from a script, which is good, right? Like everybody should be getting the same information about a college when they go visit. Um, but it also doesn't leave a ton of room for current events happening on campus or kind of what the students are talking about on campus. And so you can get more of that in the moment perspective from a school newspaper. Um, as opposed to the information that you can learn on tour. So again, sometimes the information is pretty well matched, and sometimes you learn about cool new things that you had no idea about, or sometimes you learn about less cool things that are important to know about. But regardless of what you learn, bulletin boards and newspapers are a great way to get that information.
I love that you mentioned that you take pictures of the bulletin boards because Jordan has revamped our office's entire system for taking notes about campus visits, which is again why I was so excited that she was joining me for this conversation. So, when you're touring all of these campuses, they will all start to blend together. And we do this for a living, and they start to blend together for us. So once you've seen one really beautiful campus, they all just seem really beautiful, right? So it's really easy to visit the campus and then leave and say, oh, that was great, or like, I don't know about that one, but like, what were the details? That's what you're going to miss. So Jordan has a system that works really well that we've since adopted for keeping track of all of our campus visit notes whenever anyone from our office visits a campus. And I thought that would be really helpful for her to share just some of her tips with everyone here tonight.
Yeah. So my note taking process is kind of in two parts. So the first part is while I'm actually on tour. So I will usually pull up just like an email draft or something like that. And I'm taking notes the whole time during the presentation, during the tour. I like to put as many direct quotes from the presentation or from my tour guide as possible. I think that kind of gives a little bit more of a perspective about the college. Um, I put in there bits of information, so those direct quotes. I also put in kind of my own impressions. Like if I notice every student I see is wearing the college's sweatshirt, I'll kind of make a note in that somewhere. Or if I see a bunch of other college sweatshirts represented on campus, I'll make a note of that somewhere. So I have all my notes that I'm taking. And I also take pictures while I'm on tour. So any kind of building that looks cool, bulletin boards, things like that. Um, just unique parts of the campus that I know when I'm talking with a student about a school, I want to be able to pull up that picture and show them, like, oh, yeah, and it has, XYZ building or this cool feature. So I'm taking those pictures. Then after the tour, I have a template that I kind of complete so that all of those notes get organized in the same way for every school. And you can create your own kind of template for whatever bits of information are going to be most important to you about your campus visit experience. But typically, it breaks down into like academics, student life, admissions, um, student services on campus, things like that. So I'll plug all of my notes in, and then I do all of this in Google Docs. So then I will also, in my Google folder with my notes, I will upload all the pictures that I took from the visit. And if I mention a building or I mention something specific that I saw, I'll put a link to the photo of that building in my notes because yeah, I went on a trip last summer where I visited 8 colleges, 10 colleges in 5 days, many colleges in 5 days. And if I hadn't done that, there's no way I would have been able to keep anything straight. And it makes it easy to share all of that information with my colleagues, with my students that I work with. So, kind of linking those pictures to your notes is really valuable. And then one other thing I like is I will kind of summarize the college in a couple of sentences and put that at the top of my notes. So I think that reflects, most importantly, like the vibe of the school, like what kind of impression I had, what my biggest takeaway was from that experience on campus. So if I'm reviewing my notes a year later or however much time has passed, it really helps me to kind of jump back and be like, oh, yeah, this cool thing happened. I saw that cool thing. I met this really neat person. Like, I'm able to be back in that unique experience before reading through all of those other details.
Yeah. And I think it's super helpful too to have those, explicit experiences because many times we tell our students when they get to the application process, the colleges are going to ask them to write an essay about why they're applying to this college. Why is this school a good fit for them? And so for students who have visited, it's a huge bonus because you can go back and say, there's all these reasons why this school's a great fit, but then when I visited, I had this really impactful experience, or I had this really significant interaction, and that, really cemented for me that this school could be a really good fit. And so that
Mhm.
just makes it so much more personal.
Yeah, and I know from reading college applications, like if your essay talks about my tour guide Riley told me all about her major in, interior design and had this really cool internship and that's what I want to study, like what a great and specific way to really highlight why that college is a good fit for you. Um, and it makes it so much easier to do that if you take those notes on your tour. Um, and kind of get all of them in a nice organized manner as soon after the tour as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So then once the tour's over, right? So your campus visit's done. And so again, we're assuming that families, or at least one parent, is going on the tour with the student. So, I was thinking about this when we were talking about making it official. I have had some conversations lately with students where they're registering for a campus visit, and it asks usually, how many guests will you have with you? And you have to say, two or one or whatever. And a couple times a student has said to me, "Oh, I don't know, I'll just get some friends together and I guess they'll come with me." And so that's not a great plan. So, number one, if you want to go, if your student wants to go and have some friends go with them, that's great. But each individual student should be registering themselves so that then the college has an idea, the admissions office knows, oh, we've got, 3 high school students coming. We want to make sure we're capturing all of their information, not just the one who registered. And then two, it's really helpful, I think, for at least one parent to go with the student on the visit so that you're both hearing the information and, experiencing this campus visit together, because you're probably going to pay attention to some things that are different. And some things will be the same. You might have some things that are important to both of you, but, your perspective and your student's perspective might be really different just based on life experience and all those kinds of things. But after the tour, assuming you're with them, one suggestion that we have is that you listen first. And after the tour, you're in the car on the way home, and you just want to debrief and you want to talk about, what did you think? What were the highlights? And I know for me, my instinct is always to be like, here's what I thought. What did you think? But we know that with our teens, their impression is going to be, significantly influenced, for better or worse, by what we think. So it's helpful to listen first, kind of ask them what they thought, what were their impressions, what did they like, what did they not like, before we chime in, so that we can get their unedited impression. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Jordan?
I would say too, if your student goes on a campus visit with friends, make sure that you're talking to them about their perspective, and try to have maybe some one-on-one time with your student to talk to them about what they thought about the campus tour, maybe away from their friends as well. For that same reason, if it can be so easy to be influenced one way or another about a campus experience by other people's perspectives. So maybe making that more of a private reflection.
That's good advice. I love that. Awesome. So, lots of great suggestions here. The bottom line is campus visits are super helpful. Whenever you can visit campus, it's not going to ever replace the information you can get online. During the COVID days, we had to do everything online, and that did force schools to really ramp up what they offer online. A lot of schools now do have a virtual visit option, or they have a virtual campus tour that you can see the whole campus. And that's wonderful. And I think that's a great place to start, especially if it's a school that's a little bit further away. You can get a good feel for the place before you decide to schedule a visit. But ultimately, visiting the campus, feeling what it's like to be there, driving around the area, around the outside of the campus, is really not something that you can replicate online. So, doing the visits is really significant. Making it an official visit. So, book the visit when you can, and definitely plan ahead so that you can make the most of your time while you're on that visit. So we have some time for Q&A if anyone has any questions. So I will put that here. But then coming up, I'll leave that as a scroll. But coming up, I will be back on St. Patrick's Day to talk about summer activity planning. So planning ahead for the summer. If you don't have things set up for the summer, now's the time to be starting to make those plans. So we'll talk about making the most of summer for your students. But again, if anyone has any questions about campus visits or scheduling them, different types of events, we're happy to field those questions for you. And otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And thanks so much for joining us this evening. Awesome. All right. Great. Well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a good night, and we'll see you back here on the 17th. Thanks. Bye.